What's the actual difference between an AI video that looks fake and one that looks like it was actually filmed by a professional? The difference isn't the tool you're using, but it's whether you take control of the shot instead of letting the model guess everything. And in this video, I'll teach you the fundamentals of AI video making, from your very first basic video all the way to directing a shot step by step with maximum consistency. So let's start right at the beginning with the easiest way there is to make an AI video, the thing you do on day one before you know anything about prompting. I'm going to run everything inside Higgsfield, which is an all-in-one platform that keeps every tool we need in the same place. So if you want to follow along, I've left a link to it in the description below. And I've dropped the full workflow down there too, with every single prompt I'll use in this video completely free, so you can copy them exactly as we go. Once you log in, you'll see everything laid out along the top navigation bar. And to make a video, you just click on video, which takes you straight into the video generation workspace. From the model selector, I'll pick Seedance 2 because right now it's one of the best models, and for your first AI video, there's no reason to use anything else. The most basic way to prompt is to just type out exactly what you want in simple words with no references and nothing technical. So I'll set the aspect ratio to 16:9, the resolution to 1080p, and the duration to 12 seconds, then write my first prompt for a vintage steam train coming through a narrow mountain pass at dawn. I'll also specify that I don't want any people in the shot, and that matters, because telling the model what you don't want in frame is one of the easiest ways to keep a shot clean and avoid the model coming up with stuff you didn't ask for. And it comes back looking really cinematic, the train moving through the pass in that pale morning light, exactly the scene I described. It even added its own soundtrack to match the visuals. Now I'll keep every setting the same and just prompt for something different. This time, a 2-lane coastal road running along the edge of a high cliff above the ocean in the late afternoon. Again, Seedance 2 pulls through on pure visuals, and it even added a lot of elements and multiple shots I didn't ask for. And that may seem impressive, but it's exactly the lack of control that makes a video feel generated. The whole scene looks good, but what if I only wanted a single shot of the road for a project? When you use simple prompts with no references, you leave a lot of things up to the model and it ends up guessing. Let's do one more simple text to video. For the last one, I'll prompt for a wide wheat field at golden hour with a single dirt road cutting through the middle. This is the most plain of the three. Again, it's not bad, and technically, it's exactly what I asked for. But Seedance 2 can do so much more, and not just unintentionally like the previous video, but that's really the process at this stage. You run a few simple prompts and pick the strongest one, instead of expecting the very first generation to be the one you use. If you want to test out ideas, or need a video very fast, that's the best way to do it. However, every decision in those videos, the camera, the light, the way it all moved, that was all the model, because with plain text, you're handing over almost all the control. And taking control starts from one small step before you even start generating a video, and that is deciding exactly how your video opens. The best way to do that is by making an image first, then handing it to the video model as the very first frame it animates from. Previously, the model invented the whole opening for me, but now I get to set the framing and the lighting myself before anything starts moving. You can also control exactly how your elements are going to look like. So instead of going straight to video, I'll start an image, and from the model selector, I'll pick GPT Image 2, because right now, it's one of the best image models for getting a photoreal frame with the exact composition you want. I'll set it to 16:9 and write a prompt for a narrow cobblestone alley in a European city at blue hour, and it gives me an image that looks exactly like the shot I pictured. The levels of realism from this image will carry over to the video later on, and the reason this step matters is that the image locks the composition, so if the video comes out wrong from here, I know it was the prompt and not the starting point, which is something you could never be sure of before. Now I'll head over to video, pick Seedance 2 again, and load that image in as the start frame. The first time you use an image as a start frame, Higgsfield makes you run a quick eligibility check. So go to Upload Media, then Image Generation, and click Check Eligibility, which is just confirming the image is allowed before you animate it. Once that's done, I'll set it to 10 seconds, 1080p, and 16:9, then write a prompt that starts on that exact frame, with the camera drifting slowly forward down the alley until a person steps out of the doorway and walks ahead. This is already better than the previous videos. The realism from the original image carries through, and the whole thing looks like it was actually captured with a camera. And because the video begins on my frame, the opening is precisely what I designed, and the motion just picks up from there instead of the model guessing the entire scene. Let me show you a second one so you can see the difference. This time, I'll make an image of a rooftop looking out over a city skyline at sunrise with a single wooden chair at the edge. Then, in video, I'll load it as the start frame again and prompt for a person walking in from the left and sitting down in the chair, while the camera holds completely still. Here, I'm controlling the opposite thing. The camera doesn't move at all, and that stillness is the entire mood, which only works because I set the exact frame it begins on. And one quick tip, if you're only working from a single start or end frame and you want to save on credits, Kling 3 is a solid, cheaper alternative to Seedance for this, and it handles image to video really well. So if you want to create high quality videos, generating the start frame is the bare minimum. Without it, you basically let the model invent everything and you don't allow them to show their full potential. But right now, everything after that first frame is still the model deciding on its own. And there's a way to take control of every part of the shot, not just where it begins. And the best way to do that is with something called JSON prompting. A plain prompt only describes what's in the scene. It says nothing about how it should actually be shot. So the model ends up deciding the camera, the lighting, and the pacing for you, exactly like you saw in the first videos. JSON prompting fixes that by giving every part of the shot its own separate setting. The subject, the action, the camera, the lighting, and the style all laid out so you can change just one of them, like the camera move, without rewriting the whole prompt. Now you could write all of that structure by hand, but it's slow and it's easy to forget something. So instead, I'll use a free tool called videoprompt.studio that builds it for you, and I've left a link to it in the description. The whole thing is 3 steps, and I'll run it twice on 2 completely different scenes so you can see how it adapts to each one. The first scene is a man in a suit who snaps his fingers and freezes an entire London street, then walks through the frozen world and snaps everything back to normal. Step 1 is what I call the 3-liner, which is just the idea in plain language, a subject, an action, and a payoff, with no camera direction and nothing technical in it. So I'll write that the man snaps his fingers, a shockwave freezes every pedestrian and pigeon mid-air. He explores the frozen city, then snaps again, and everything resumes. On its own, a plain idea like this hands every technical decision to the model, the same way those first videos did. Step 2 is where videoprompt.studio comes in. So I'll paste that 3-liner in, select Seedance as the model, turn on JSON mode, and it hands me back a fully structured prompt with every one of those parts set as its own field. This raw version already works, but it fills most of those fields with safe, generic defaults. So step 3 is where the real control happens, where I go in and change specific fields myself. I'll change the camera from that generic tracking shot to a Steadicam that follows him in, flies backwards as he walks through the frozen world, then rises to a wide overhead on the final snap, because that deliberate movement is what makes a shot feel directed instead of randomly generated. For the lighting, I'll set hard midday sun with real building shadows and add dust and frozen particles hanging in the air after the snap, since those suspended particles are the detail that actually sells the idea that time has stopped. Then I'll switch the style to a real cinema camera look with fine natural film grain, which is what gets rid of that obvious AI look. And the biggest change is adding a sequence, which is a timestamped breakdown of what happens in each second. So from 0 to 3, he walks in and snaps. The freeze happens at the 3-second mark. He explores from 6 to 9, and the second snap brings everything back at the end. This way, instead of hoping the model paces the scene right, I'm directing it second by second, which is exactly the level of control that takes you from generating to directing a scene. Then I'll copy that finished prompt straight into Seedance on 15 seconds, 1080p and 16:9 and generate.
Perfect.
This is insane. This is a completely different result from the plain prompts. The freeze happens exactly on the second I timed it, and the camera moves the way I set it, so the whole thing finally looks like a scene from a film. This is what Seedance 2 can actually deliver when you prompt it correctly. Now let me run the exact same process on a completely different kind of scene, a fast action one, because usually shots with intense action are where AI models start to struggle. This scene is a man with glowing orange eyes fighting a giant monster on a collapsing high-rise at night. I'll start with the same kind of three-liner, just the plain idea. He fights the creature across the building, dodging it and climbing it, and finishes it with one punch that shakes the whole structure. Then I'll paste it into videoprompt.studio and generate the JSON the same way. And again, the raw version captures the idea but leaves the camera angles and the pacing on generic defaults. But this time, the fields I tweak are different because an action scene needs different settings than the Frozen Street did. The most important one is the camera. So instead of a single angle, I'll set a multi-angle sequence, a low-wide shot to establish the monster, handheld tracking through the fight, a spiral orbit as he jumps, and a slow push in on the final hit, because real action is cut from several angles, and one static shot would make it look flat. For the lighting, I'll keep it at cold moonlight and let the only real color be the orange glow from his eyes, because holding the color back like that is what keeps an action scene looking cinematic instead of messy. And just like before, I'll add the timestamped sequence, so each step of the fight happens exactly when I want it, then drop in a negative prompt to keep the monster from looking cartoonish. I'll copy it into Seedance on the same settings and generate. And this comes out looking like a real action sequence. The hits feel heavy, and the camera cuts through the fight from every angle I set. The movement can be a little awkward, but it happens so fast that you barely notice it. And both times, the plain three-liner and the finished version are describing the exact same scene. The only thing that changed is how much of the shot I controlled instead of the model. So by setting each part of the shot myself, I went from a video the model guessed at to one I actually directed. And that's the difference between something that looks AI and something that looks professionally shot. But in both of these, the only thing I didn't control is how the character looked like, and the hardest thing to pull off in AI videos is keeping that exact same person looking identical across completely different scenes. And the reason characters fall apart is that the model is guessing what they look like from a single image, so every new generation shifts their face or their outfit a little. The fix is to stop letting it guess and build what's called a character sheet first, which is just the same person shown from a few different angles in one image. So I'll head back to Image with GPT Image 2 and generate my first character as a 3-panel sheet, a front view, a back view, and a close-up of the face, all on a plain studio background with even lighting and no harsh shadows. That plain, evenly lit background actually matters, because the fewer distractions in the sheet, the easier it is for the model to keep the character consistent later. This first one is a man in a charcoal turtleneck, and once I'm happy with him, I'll save the sheet as a reference. Then I'll do the exact same thing for a second character, a woman in a black blazer, and save her. Building these sheets is the step that usually gets skipped, and it's the entire reason characters change from one shot to the next. Now I'll also make the 2 places the video takes place in. So I'll generate one location as an empty underground parking garage at night, and another as a high-rise glass office with the city lights behind it, and save both as references too. With both characters and both locations saved, I'll head over to Video and pick Seedance 2, because this is the model that can actually hold several references at once. So I'll set it to 15 seconds, 1080p and 16:9, and instead of loading one reference, I'll load in several at the same time, both character sheets and the parking garage, so the model builds the whole scene out of them. One thing to know is that you'll want to run each of these video prompts through videoprompt.studio first, the same JSON step from before. And if a prompt goes over the tool's 1200 character limit, just paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to shorten it before you generate the JSON. For the first scene, I'll prompt the 2 of them meeting in the garage for a tense, silent handoff of a single folded document, shot from a few angles. both characters come out exactly like their sheets, with the same faces and outfits, standing in a real location together instead of looking pasted in. The light does go out at the end without me prompting for it, but to be honest, there's always a chance of something like this happening. AI videos are still not perfect, even if your prompt is, so the only thing you can do is just make sure you've got everything you can control figured out and regenerate. Then I'll keep the exact same 2 characters and just swap the location reference for the office and prompt a short scene where they actually talk.
This only works if we move tonight.
I know. I've known since this morning. Then we're agreed.
And this is the part that proves it, because it's clearly the same 2 people from the garage, but now in a completely different place with completely different lighting. It even has them speak their lines out loud with the audio generated right alongside the video. That consistency across 2 separate scenes is what turns a handful of one-off shots into something that looks like an actual production with real characters. So you've gone from typing one plain sentence at the start to directing entire scenes with the same characters held consistent the whole way through, and that's everything you need to go from a complete beginner to actually mastering AI video making. So if you want to start creating your own professional AI videos, use the link in the description below to sign up to Higgsfield. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.